Niin de suinigo, kaji kendaman, pagut kamago mo, gi chintau gi nokmusibal. Mishko normal choyamban, kaye, monsam ke goding dew koyan, kish kan de go buku, odonaga misan, misheshi, a voice id. Kami go sigo ni dugin dinam, swimming panagina bit. Kimi go sigo ni nendam when nabandam one. Germany don't need to give me what you shit them out. No, go make take on the go bag on Agaton. You're much of the dogs and feet all digonan. But can't you go waistcoat father, spec as Nikas, no make pocket, Mr. Waistcoat for Dana. And it's keep money. My money doorway is it Anishinaabe, waistcoat the comic. Jibois, no commission, Vawin, Great Wind, Great Key and Proceed.
When you talk about the 7 teachings, like when you talk about courage, you have to have so much courage to live in the world today. So many things are happening to us in our world with so many people being sick, and like in our community, we lost how many elders, how many people died in the last, I think 9 or 10 just in the last since January, eh?
Yeah.
So you have to have a lot of courage to be able to go on. We're so fortunate to have these grandfathers to help us. Go to the bear, ask him for courage, and always remember the spirit of the turtle, what she represents. She represents truth, the truth.
For thousands of years, the ancestors of today's Anishinaabe, or Ojibwe people, lived and prospered along the scenic north shore of the majestic Lake Superior. Survival in the north depended on a deep understanding of the natural world, of forests, plants, and animals.
You know, if it wasn't for Mother Earth, we wouldn't have no life. We got to give thanks for our everyday life and for the food, you know, that she provides for us and the medicine that she gives to us through the land.
While life in the sometimes treacherous climate could be deadly, the Anishinaabe not only survived, they maintained a healthy coexistence with their environment and with one another through an intricate system of mutual respect and lifelong learning.
When we think about Indigenous peoples and their ability to thrive and to live in some of the harshest environments in the world, that knowledge about how to find resources is really unique and it's really important.
Kinnikinnick is the original tobacco that the Creator gave us to use. So it's used for many medicines.
It's very important to be thankful for the water to help cleanse ourselves, the healing within inside, and it plays a big part of our whole being and our whole life.
This Indigenous knowledge was passed down generation after generation, from elders to youth, through observation, teachings, and storytelling.
That's why the land is very important to the Anishinaabe people, because that's where we live. We live on Mother Earth. We're supposed to look after Mother Earth, and we do the best we can.
This nurturing relationship with the land and with one another was forever altered when European explorers arrived.
We're seeing a real threat to Indigenous identity because of this Indigenous knowledge being lost over time.
After centuries of geographic and cultural upheaval, the impact on the social, spiritual, and physical health of the Anishinaabe people can be witnessed in First Nation communities throughout Ontario.
If you look at our kids, how many of those kids are already obese? We got our little store there, and the storekeeper gives them a little paper bag. They come there with chips and pop, and we allow that to happen to our kids. Look at me, eh? I've been 350 pounds for 30 years of my life as a chief, and wow, what has that done to the insides of me?
And it's only been, in the past 150 years that many changes have been happening to the ways that Indigenous peoples interact with their environments because of processes of environmental dispossession.
Today, we're wrecking the forests, taking all the trees, wrecking all our medicines and our sugar camps and our trapping grounds. Whereabouts we used to hunt back there. There's no place to hunt back there now.
There's only so much that the land can absorb. Look at the river, look at the lake, you know? The mines, number one was cyanide. The Stillwater one is saying, well, we're not going to be endangering the Pick River. I don't believe that. But then I'm told, well, you got to be quiet because we're going to make money. Well, how much money is it worth to poison that river?
Elders in the communities along the North Shore of Lake Superior were really worried about some of the health effects that they've been seeing related to environmental change in their communities.
Pretty hard to feed your family just going fishing. At one time that lake was full with lake trout, but now it's pollution, I guess. You don't want to eat too much of it.
One of the really worrying issues among the elders was the loss of Indigenous knowledge as a result of this environmental change.
As Anishinaabe, we're supposed to be the caretakers. I think we should be asking the land first before we go and destroy it. Ask the elders, what are we destroying when we go and do different kinds of things with the land?
As elders and youth are not spending as much time together out on the land because of these various environmental changes, the ability for elders to pass along Indigenous knowledge is not occurring in the same way as it has in the past.
That's what happens to the youth too. They got all the technology they have today. They have the iPods and computers and everything. Bring them out in the bush, show them the real life about the land.
Indigenous knowledge is key to Indigenous cultures, Indigenous identity, and it's the way that Indigenous peoples relate to the land, but it's also about the way that Indigenous peoples relate to one another.
What's important is our way of life. What was forbidden for us, you know, what was taken away. I think that's what's the main reason why our families don't operate the way they should, because they lost communication with the Creator, you know, the spirits, the caring, the sharing, the harmony, you know, the peacefulness you feel here.
Through conversations and these meetings with elders, we began to develop a research project in both Pick River and in Batchewana.
The Batchewana First Nation of Ojibways is located near Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and comprises 4 reserve areas: Gouli Bay, Obadjuwan, Whitefish Island, and Rankin. The Ojibways of the Pick River First Nation is located approximately 400 kilometers northwest of Batchewana First Nation, on the north shore of Lake Superior. While Pick River's traditional territory extends from the southern boundary of Pakasaw National Park to Schreiber and inland past the Trans-Canada Highway, the reserve totals only 316 hectares of land.
We worked with the communities and with the elders in particular to develop a research project based on community visions and community desires to see elders and youth connected on a research project that would enable transfer of Indigenous knowledge from elders to youth.
I try to keep a balance in my life. To me, that's like a big thing because I'm into the cultural ways. Like I like going to ceremonies and participating in a lot of community events. But at the same time, I like to kind of do, I guess you'd say, mainstream stuff. Like I'm a musician, so I play in a band and I like to go play pool and those kinds of things. So I don't try to let like one end of my life overpower the other one. I plan on attending college for fish and wildlife and then forestry. To me, the environment is very important.
I have a 2-year-old, so my time is not my own. I spend a lot of time teaching him how to be a little person and playing with him and reading to him. So when I do find time for myself, I read a lot. I'm going in my 2nd year, and my major in the fall will be Anishinaabe with a minor in English. I'm really excited for next year and the new studies that I'll be taking. Well, I try and participate in everything that I can. I'm not a big hunter, but fishing, I do enjoy fishing.
I go to Confederation College. I did 3 years there. I live in Pick River First Nation. I come from a big family. I got lots of brothers and sisters. I love powwows. I love it. I love the feeling that you get when you dance. I love drumming. I really, really enjoy just hearing a drum.
I just graduated from college. Now I'm going to Lakehead University to take social work. I took Native Child and Family Services. Yeah, it was a really great program. Graduated with honors and I just loved it. Well, I know everybody on my reserve. You know, I grew up there. I know all the elders and I think I have a good relationship with most of them. And I can relate to the issues that happen there.
I attend Confederation College. I'm going for my accounting. And I hopefully attend Lakehead University. I'm a mother to two beautiful girls, Mackenzie and Madison. They're my life. And really my goal in life is to raise them to be healthy girls. I want them to be healthy spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically. And I want to give them the life I didn't have. Being a mother of two beautiful girls and seeing that another mine's going up and another mine's closing kind of thing. It's like, hey, you guys, you gotta keep this land healthy because I don't want to leave my kids on a land that they can't even live on.
So we hired youth from both Batchewana and Pick River. We brought them to the University of Western Ontario, but many universities in Canada have not necessarily been really friendly places for Native people. They've been really isolating places. By making the visit to Western a positive experience, we wanted to make it a place that they could see themselves returning to.
When I found out that we were going, I was freaking out. I couldn't sleep that night. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so scared. I've never been on a plane. But once we were in the air, it was all right.
Initially, I thought that this was just a small summer job, like come do your job and when the summer's over, that's it. Whereas this one, it's a very big project. There's a lot riding on it. I'm just wondering if I'll be able to do enough.
You know, and I'm like, okay, we're coming here to do research for something. That's what my understanding was.
Interviews with the elders and that was it, but I didn't know it was like this big.
We spent a week training them in qualitative research methods. So this means training youth with interview skills and teaching them how to ask questions in a culturally sensitive way and preparing them to return to their communities to spend the summer interviewing their elders.
I feel like there's a lot of pressure on us to get the right information and it's a little worrisome.
Oh my God, what did I get myself into? I was under the impression I was just coming here to get interview techniques and then take it back and go interview my elders, but there's more to that.
Community-based research is an approach to doing research that enables the community to work with researchers to respond to community concerns and design research that will enable them to ask questions that they really want to know about.
Well, I think that in any community, health and environmental issues should be made aware of and talked about.
To have other people come in and research it and study it and figure out where we could improve, it would definitely be a good thing for the community.
We've seen a lot of research that has too often benefited researchers and not individual communities.
Maybe if we get like a copy of it and we get the results back from the project itself, we could utilize the information and the data that's collected and perhaps move towards making changes in our community.
This approach to research means that we are addressing real needs in communities.
I just hope that everyone in the community could realize how important this is and how important it's going to be for us in the future and how we can benefit from this.
We're very honored to be able to contribute in such a thing like this, representing my community.
Getting the opinions of our elders will help the community maybe understand what we should do, because who knows better than our knowledge keepers.
I don't think they pay enough attention to what the elders have to say, and I think this is like a good way to give them a voice.
What we really wanted to do was to find a way to preserve Indigenous knowledge, the knowledge that these elders have about health in their communities, about the environment, special places in their traditional territories, key stories, to preserve that knowledge in a way that future generations can use to preserve their cultural identity and to maintain that connection to land.
Oh, I feel a lot more relaxed and less nervous. I feel like I'm more confident what the project is about and what our goal and our roles are. And I'm really excited to get back and actually start interviewing our elders.
On a more basic level, we're trying to connect youth and elders.
You can just knock at their door and they'll invite you in and you can talk for hours and they're just very open and friendly.
This passing down of Indigenous knowledge hasn't been occurring. This is really troubling for many First Nation communities because it means that The youth are not receiving that guidance, that knowledge and message about the importance of connecting to land and to one another in a respectful way.
Teachings, that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to all my elders' teachings of our people.
So this is our lodge, and there's some grandfathers here that we've collected over the years. They're protectors. Other people bring their rocks.
My grandmother, she helped raise me, and I lost her in January. So there's a lot of things that I wish that I could have got out of her, more stories and stuff. So when we interview these elders, I'm going to be able to hear more stories and stuff like that. So I'm really excited.
Okay.
I just hope I get really cooperative elders, because some days I know they have their days.
With this project, with us bringing light and attention to it, people will notice it, and maybe people in the community will get a little more involved.
The health's not a big focus as it is for the lands, and with still water coming in and with the closing of Hemlow mines, like everyone hears about that, but no one's worried about the health.
Our overall health, we're not as healthy as we should be.
A lot of our elders have diabetes. They really have to take care of themselves and keep an eye on their blood sugar.
Everybody has this impression that we're the chubby Indians. Like, it's true though, you come to my reserve and you'll notice that, I see it. A lot of people are freaking overweight, man. Diet's not good in our community.
I see a lot of obesity, a lot of addictions.
Every reserve has their addictions, right? Alcohol, drugs is gonna be there. But now the addictions are getting more serious.
Being able to know our tradition more would help a lot.
I just try to eat healthy, I'm not like a prime example of a healthy person.
We can't really just live off the land anymore. We don't know how. I was never taught how to go hunting.
Like culturally, I think that it's important to attend ceremonies and go to sweat lodges and stuff. I think that's really good for your health.
I shake my rattle, I call them, and the grandfathers, the ones that need help, they'll come in this lodge to help them. Let go, release their hurts.
Not everyone's going to ceremonies like they used to be. Our church is at risk closing down. I kind of think the health of our community right now is not where it could be.
Once our week of training at Western was up, the youth went home and they were accompanied by graduate students from Western.
You're talking about health.
It's different now because...
And they spent the following 6 or 7 weeks interviewing elders in their communities about key health and environmental issues.
Long logs.
I told you about the difference in the sacredness of the tobacco, right? That was the first medicine to give and receive an offering in the morning when you wake up. What I do with tobacco also is the teaching I receive is to put it around your property, right around your property. And I'll do it not every season, but I'll do it in the fall. And in the springtime, I'll just put it all around my property. And that closes your property so the darks can't get in there, right? Or,
Let's talk about focusing specifically on one aspect of the land. So meanings associated with the land. What does the land mean to you? Kind of how elders spoke about that.
A good amount of them would say pretty much almost the exact same line. They'd say the land means everything.
We don't go around saying I'm Ojibwe, I'm Chippewa. We are Anishinaabe. We use our term to describe who we are, where we come from this land here. When you think of that word, Ani, Anishinaabe, Abe means where we come from. So you're speaking and saying, I am from this land.
The relationship between Indigenous peoples and their environment has been health sustaining. And that's because Indigenous peoples have relied on their natural environments for foods, their medicines.
So this medicine here, cedar, is called Gishkandik. Gishkandik.
We are the land. If the land is sick, that it ain't going to be very long before we're going to get sick. And how we take care of the land is important.
If you don't treat anything with respect, it'll hurt you, it'll come back at you.
Spending that time out on the land hasn't been just about finding food and so on, but it's been about sharing moral values and being connected in a good way.
The full moon ceremonies that we do back at the lodge for our people so we can share. Because if we don't share what we're feeling inside, then a lot of sickness happens.
I still burn a little fire back here, offer tobacco, to help people that are suffering, sick and ailing.
And our elders that have come in that circle and shared their life, their pain, their hurts, which is very, very sacred. And it's always about love of the family. And we'd sit and pray for our health.
They needed to learn by their parents what to love and respect other people, eh? So that's part of learning how you grow up. My parents always make sure that I know those teachings, eh?
We learned back in the day, families had their own rocks, so they went out to their own rocks and like did their blueberry picking.
Because like you can hunt off the land, you know, you can make your little shelter off the land, everything.
It brings us strong connections to the land and opportunities such as self-government. For family, the land helps people come together, brings everyone together for gatherings and teaching and learning.
The social relationships that Indigenous peoples have with one another have been further promoted and further sustained through their relationships and time spent on the land.
So my grandparents took me under their wing and protected me, and they took me with them when they went in the bush. I was fortunate because I experienced the life on the land. In the winter time, they go trapping.
My mom, she knew how to get a beaver, clean it. My mom could tan a hide too, but she'd do it for people if they got a beaver or something, or muskrats. She knew how to do all that stuff.
We go walk around the bush and, you know, just look around, maybe go hunting, maybe go sit by a beach like this, along Lake Superior, have a fire.
See, I used to be crazy about going to the sugar bush. I'd be glad, you know. Gee whiz, we're going to have some maple syrup, sugar cakes.
We'd go fishing with my parents, my dad, and we'd catch speckled trout. He'd show us how to tie the hooks, and he'd show us how to troll.
I grew up with elders, you know, hunting and trapping with my uncle. He lived right off the land.
Around the 1930s, there was no such thing as a registered trap line. Everybody could trap anywhere they want. The Anishinaabe had certain traditional areas, but they'd respect wherever each family group is going in.
And our elder told me all the families would hunt. Says if we seen a moose, we would knock it down, you know, and we would all share. We'd be one big family down there.
It's about food, it's about diet, it's about living in a healthy way on the land.
They didn't have electricity, they didn't have vehicles or running water. Every day they'd have to chop firewood.
I can remember going in the bush with my dad and getting wood. We'd have sleigh dogs in the sleigh. He'd load up the sleigh. He taught me how to bring the dogs home and unload and take the dogs back out in the bush for them.
And they'd pick berries and vegetables and they'd make crafts.
My grandmother was capable of making rabbit skin blankets. She made moccasins, mucklucks. She made snowshoes. All the resources they needed was from the land.
Without the resources from the land, Indigenous peoples really would not have been able to sustain themselves for so many generations.
I look at photos of my Finlayson ancestors. They're all lean, not a fat man in there. Some of the women were getting a little bit overweight, but you could tell those men were hard-working men. They were still working on the land.
We were told that we have to start drinking the medicine because the way the world is changing today, everything that's happening, there's going to be more disasters coming, there's going to be illnesses coming. So we should be drinking this medicine every day as a youth. In your community, you should be passing that message on to your youth.
When we hear about their days when they were growing up here on the reserve as children, it's like you just respected your elders. That's what they were taught. So some of those values were still being passed down. And the elders are saying that they are the knowledge holders and the youth want to listen because they're the future leadership.
Indigenous knowledge is the knowledge people have about living in and being part of their greater ecosystems.
And my mom, she taught us how to set snares to catch rabbits. She was really a smart lady.
My first teacher was my greatest teacher. That's my grandmother. She taught me lots, just by example.
My grandfather gave us all Indian names. We all had spiritual names. Mine was Mishanguis, which is Barton. Those names that you got, those are the names and the helpers that will guide you through your life.
My parents and my grandparents, they would go to the land and they would let us play amongst these bushes and these trees, and they'd show us the medicines.
Our grandmother was a medicine woman. She wasn't called a medicine woman, but she was a caring woman that was invited to help many, many people in sickness, in grief, death experiences, babies being born. She was always called upon.
Indigenous knowledge is practiced. It's a knowledge that people gain from living on the land and participating in activities.
They didn't preach to us. They would just point and they'd say, use this gum or those berries.
As you start to hear more about the stories of our people, you'll see what I mean about the beauty of our culture and the beauty of our history and the beauty of the incidents that took place that have protected which we have today.
Thinking of my grandfather, Ernie Otis, and he would wake up early in the morning and he would take us for a little walk and he would show us all these little wee creatures, flies, the bugs, the birds, the water, the sky, the trees. All of this is from creation. And he would talk to us and teach us about love.
The elders in First Nation communities have traditionally played a really vital role in transferring Indigenous knowledge to younger generations.
I know when I was young, I spent a lot of time with my grandmother. Beautiful grandmother. She would tell me stuff, and I'd sit with her. She'd sing to me, she'd sing songs.
My mom, she would tell us stories about how she came down from Long Lac on the Pick River. And she said one time they were coming down and their boat turned over. And she said she remembered grabbing the baby with a cradle and swimming to shore, I guess, to save the baby.
We were taught very, very young about the spring water. And the greatest medicine is water, the healer of all. Again, if you believe in your belief.
We have to walk to church here, and there's a lot of elders all over as we walk together. I remember my mom was telling me, never run in front of the elder because you might startle them. We weren't allowed to make noise or yell around there where they are. My mom would teach me how to respect people.
When I think back, listening to my dad and relatives, they would talk about the community's wellness, how we can all work together to somehow create a better life for the future.
So they taught us to pick up our bundles and to use them. And you just teach your children what was taught to us, you just pass on.
When you talk to elders in this village or the next village up the road, they all have a little piece. And if you add that all up, you'll see that you have a pretty inclusive society that we still have.
It must have been over here on this side, not around there, on the other side of it. That's where they must have been drumming from. They used to listen to drummers. They'd be drumming all night. That's what my mother told me. That was a long time ago.
Medicines come to me where I'm traveling in ceremony. I usually have a sweetgrass braid for medicine only.
Okay.
Yeah, and not one that, or you can cut this off.
Yeah.
Then you would cut about that much off and you would put it. But if you really, really want to make it strong, you can come and ask me for some grandfather root because we're going to pick some now and we'll have some for the winter. And all you need is just a little bit to put in if you're making the medicine. So, and that's four direction medicine is a cleansing medicine. It'll cleanse your body and it'll make you strong. Medicine will never hurt you, ever, ever, ever.
Over the past 150 years, we've seen significant changes in the way Indigenous peoples relate to their environments because of various processes of environmental dispossession.
But Anishinaabe has all kinds of lands before the white man ever came here. They took everything away from them.
Some elders would say that while they're going to sign a treaty, they had like military around them with guns. So it's like you had to sign this. It was a horrible deal, but I guess they just had to sign it out of necessity.
Anishinaabe from all around the Great Lakes would gather in St. Mary's River in Sault Ste. Marie. And that's where we would have our governance gatherings, our spiritual gatherings. That's why the treaty was signed in Sault Ste. Marie, because Anishinaabe were there.
Our chief at the time heard about this and said he refused to stay there because he knew that what was going on was totally wrong. So consequently, today we are in a vicious comprehensive claim, trying to retain the rights for the land that we never gave away.
And that's where we lost a lot of our land, and we said because of that, we don't have as much as we used to, so we have to keep fighting for what we do have.
And for a long time, it was illegal for us to fish the way we fish, even though we explicitly set that out for ourselves in our treaty relationship.
White trappers were moving in, the resources were getting depleted, so they had to do something. They started looking for wage jobs, Ontario paper, Marathon Corp, stuff like that. So what am I going to do with that trap line in here? So they sold them off.
Environmental dispossession can also occur in less direct ways. One of the greatest examples of this would be the introduction of residential schools.
So they thought we'll start a residential school and then we'll take that language away from them. It's about genocide.
And you know, our people were doing ceremony a long time ago, but because of the residential school, all our medicines were taken away from us.
That's how the Europeans disempowered our people, because our people were strong people.
And one woman, she says, my son never came back when he went to residential school. I never seen my son again.
Late 1930s, 1940s, and into the 1950s, that transition took place from where the families used to all spend time out in the bush to where they had to stay at home because the kids had to go to school.
They said they became disconnected from their families, and that causes like a loss of family ties and traditions.
We're talking about policies that were meant to disconnect Indigenous peoples from their traditional lands and territories, and therefore disconnect that Indigenous knowledge link.
I think up until like the 50s or 60s, even ceremonies was actually like legally banned. So they weren't allowed to do those kinds of things. So maybe they kind of figured they were protecting their kids by not teaching them.
The ladies, they'd all take their sacred items. They'd go up the river, way up the river in the secret. That's where they do their ceremonies. They would never ever do it in the community because it was against the law.
And my dad would tell us, like he's 90 now, but he'd say when he was a kid, his parents would tell him, don't tell anybody what we're eating, because the game wardens would come into the community and they would ask kids, what'd you eat for supper? They said meat. They'd go and arrest the parents.
We were all poor. Everybody was poor. People hardly had anything to eat. You had to go trade around our rugs and trade our baskets into old clothes and stuff like that.
Just like when my dad was farming, he had chickens. And if you had a pound of butter, you wanted a dozen eggs, he traded. There was no such thing as $1 for this, $1 for that.
There was no money, not that much anyway. Yeah?
The real issue here is an equity issue, because the First Nation communities along the North Shore are feeling significant health and environmental effects of living near these large industries, yet they're seeing very little economic benefit.
They used to be able to drink from the river, but now it's like not drinkable. There's less fish. We have like clear cutting.
You know, we never ever heard of no such thing as clear cutting. Now today, boy, it's happening right now in our own backyards. For example, lay out in the highway.
Yeah, the trap line runs right in the middle of this here part here. They come and clear cut there. Cut it right now. They even take my traps out of there. It's unbelievable. It hurts, you know.
The political context of the North Shore of Lake Superior is such that pulp and paper mills are closing down in droves.
And then we have the mines.
The federal and provincial governments are supporting unprecedented mining in the traditional territories of First Nation communities.
The local mining industry, they don't give a damn about the input that we have in terms of protection of the lands. They don't care. You look at the piles of rock that they have there that they took from underneath the ground. They don't want to throw it away because now the price of gold, they're going to put that back in the system to get the gold out of that, eh? Money is the poison.
So they have like a big tailing pond, and it's getting bigger and bigger.
When they built the tailings ponds, that's what we were very, very worried about there in the first time, is about leakage, okay? And it's never supposed to leak.
In the late 80s, toxic cyanide was released through a spill from one of 3 upstream mines into the Black River, which is a tributary of the Pic River. And what this means is that for close to a decade, Pick River had to rely only on bottled water because their water supply had been contaminated.
We really had to fight, okay, politically, to get help with our, water system being changed from the river, to Lake Superior, our wells, Yes, that's been a big change. That's been a benefit, but it's been a big cost to us too.
So because we can't drink out of our water, we have water wells. And because of the water wells, it blocked access to spiritual land.
There's a direct link between the health of Pick River and the health of the community because they could potentially drink contaminated water.
The pollution from the mines and from the mill can go into our water and affect the people's health.
Because cyanide is something that they couldn't really see in the water, it created greater fears around what could be in the environment.
They say, oh yeah, it's going to be well, looked after, it's going to be well monitored now, But how could they tell if there's a leakage? It could seep underground, And that's what really worries me about our younger generation.
And I think there's got to be a reason, right, for 9 people to pass away within 6 months is a lot of people for a small town. I don't know, I think there's something wrong with something on our reserve, maybe the water.
Batchewana First Nation is located very close to the city of Sault Ste. Marie, which has been one of the largest steel-producing cities in Canada. The community members of Batchewana are very worried about what living near this industry means for the airs and waters and other resources of their traditional territory.
Whereas back in the day, people would fish for themselves and their families. Nowadays, our people have to commercial fish.
I worked with my dad commercial fishing in an outboard boat, not on a tug, doing everything by hand, pulling nets by hand, understanding the wind. My dad, he'd look at the water in the morning and he'd be able to tell by the type of wave whether or not to set the nets. We're losing that skill in our communities. There's not many people that still know how to do nets by hand.
We're not fishing like the way we traditionally used to, but we have to adapt with the times.
One of the really new and emerging concerns is the introduction of wind turbines in their traditional territories.
Our fishing has changed. Since I've been here, we used to fish on that shoreline. Now we don't fish over there because there's no fish over there. So there's a big change in our land.
And they're very worried about what these wind turbines mean for the migratory patterns of birds and other mammals in their territory.
Because it's on Batchewana's traditional territory, we're very serious about these companies coming to us and cooperating with us. You have to respect and understand that that's our territory. We're starting to manage it the way we should have been doing for a long time now.
We have to take more charge of what is happening with the resource extraction. We gotta be able to, number one, identify the land that we want to have retained for us, the Kim land, that is our land. And what do we allow to come into our land? Who gets the value out of making holes in the ground? Who gets the value?
Don't go to bed without saying I love you, Gizagi, and because you never know from day to day what's going to happen tomorrow, right? And you could be gone, so always try to tell your family. But we're not used to, we're used to saying that word, we love you, because of the way environment we grew up in. You know, our parents didn't tell us a lot of things, but they did the best they could.
The results of environmental dispossession, whether occurring in direct or indirect forms, have been really disastrous for the health of First Nation peoples.
We noticed that diabetes, obesity, cancer, TB was a big one.
My mom was she was not a well person. She had heart disease and arthritis really bad.
But that switch again during the 40s, 50s, when they're moving away from the land into a wage economy, eating all that store-bought food, and disease starting to, particularly diabetes, starting to creep in, heart disease.
There was 6 of us in that one room, and in the living room, that's where my parents had their bed. And of course, my mom was so scared of tuberculosis.
Indigenous peoples are no longer dying primarily because of infectious disease, but we're seeing long-term chronic diseases such as type 2 diabetes. We're seeing increases in cardiovascular disease and a number of long-term chronic diseases that we didn't see in the First Nation context previously.
My grandma, she was born in 1898 and she died when she was 98 years old. She would talk about how we would live a long time.
That's pretty old.
And some of them talked about the convenience of having a grocery store. You didn't have to actually grow your own food or take care of it or go out and hunt or set snares or anything anymore. So the convenience of everyday life is a huge reason why kids don't want to go out on the land.
As we're seeing people spending less time out together, we're seeing a real decline in the social connectedness and the ways that these moral and social values are practiced as well. And this is really leading to, just a change in the social fabric of many First Nation communities.
There's like a gap between the youth and the elder compared to what there was before, and why that gap is there. Mostly the main points that came out was technology and parenting, the lack of parenting skills, parents not passing it down. There's less time being spent on the land and there's changing social values.
My mother, she would show us a little bird's nest, and she said, "This is a family, you don't go and hurt families. And you need to share everything that you have and really be good to your sisters and your brothers."
I think some of the most troubling health statistics that we're seeing in the First Nation population is the incidence of socially caused diseases.
Abuse, alcohol, drugs, and pills.
I remember my mom and dad having fights, the fighting, from the alcoholism. And growing up like that, I guess as a kid, that's where all the fear come from.
The primary cause of death and illness in the First Nation context is not heart disease. It's related to injury, suicide, and accidents and violence. The results of environmental dispossession and colonialism are really at the root of these troubling patterns.
Laughter is a really good medicine.
I love laughter.
I love laughter because when you laugh, it releases those endorphins, natural endorphins in your brain, and they make you happy, and happiness will be spread to everybody. And the negative can't get in there when you're happy. The negative cannot get in anybody that's happy. So the more you laugh, the happier you are.
We have to claim that which is ours, because that's where our secrets to longevity and our secrets to balance and prosperity and harmony are, within our ways.
How I maintain my health is also going to ceremonies. I just been to one. There was the Mother Earth Lodge, and I come back like refreshed and really happy.
How does someone heal? They go back to the land and you sit with people that really care. You just sit and you be and you listen. It's all within the spirit.
And one of the things that we practice as a family, if there's something going on around, like some issue is happening, is we sit down as a family in a circle and we talk about it.
Pick River's health, basically we can break it down into two things. It's either traditional or it's the Western.
There's lots of opportunity that they have at the health clinic, the walk or whatever it might be, or diabetic support group. All that is happening. That would help to improve the health of the family.
Spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, they're all there in that health center.
Any special visitors that come, like foot care, our doctors work out of this room. So yeah, this is our multi-purpose treatment room.
They do a great job. They try really hard to better our people, I wish the community would resource them more.
The major thing was just physical health. Their understanding of health was physical health.
Eat better, fruits and vegetables, and like wild meat, would be good.
They would just talk about the health center, their doctors, their prescription medication.
And exercise. Lots of exercising. Walk every day.
It's more than just taking a pill. That's a reactive, it's not a proactive approach. Ours is not a medical reactive model.
The newer generation are more involved with the traditions, so I think the idea is maybe to have an actual sweat lodge part of the health center there.
Our societies, our structures, how we interacted, how we ate, how we exercised, how we worked, our spirituality, all of that needs attention all the time, and we'll have good health.
but yet this western part still comes up, so this plays a big part in why we are the way we are today.
Sugar diabetes has just rocketed. I think that's happening to every First Nation out there. They didn't have that before, because they had good food, eh? They were eating right off the land and healthy food. But if we were to go back to trying to eat the best that we could, off the land, hunting and fishing and growing our own gardens and that, I think it would be a lot healthier.
We're really resilient as a people. In order to improve our resiliency, I think we need to really focus on those things coming back to life.
Elders used to go up in the bush, go and pick up medicine that cured you.
One elder talked to us about she went to see like a medicine man.
And then I cut it up really small. In any recipes that we need for sickness, we use it. Mountain ash. It's an awesome medicine.
Like it's still around. I think we just need to go back to it and stuff like that.
This community has a lot of that knowledge of our medicinal plants and herbs.
Like today, they don't stop you from making medicine, so you can make your own medicine.
A lot of the elders, they drank throughout their life. And one thing we noticed in the last 10 years or more is that a lot of people have quit. And what's helped them quit is getting into the traditional aspect. Whereas they started attending fires, they started attending sweat lodges and ceremonies.
I sobered up in 95. I found this way of life. I carry my medicine bundle, my sacred items. Carry a pipe. I do sacred fires. I was something else when I drank, and I was something else when I did drugs. I didn't really care if I had a family. I didn't really care if I had a wife. I didn't really care if I had a life. But when I gave up alcohol, I cried and I surrendered that. A half-day treatment, I came to believe a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity.
When I first got that tobacco from that pipe carrier, that he offered me that tobacco and he told me what to do with the power of that tobacco, something must have hit me there, because I released all my wrongdoings, all my baloney I did when I was drinking and drugging and everything else.
And when I found Alcoholics Anonymous, I learned to live one day at a time, to make the best use of each day, and and not to worry, and to pray, and to ask God for help. One of the greatest prayers in our way is that sobriety prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
So with the sobriety, we're able to help other people in our life. If you ever need help or whatever, you just come to our doorstep, have a cup of tea, and just sit and share and talk. And that is from our family, from my grandfather and my grandmother.
You gotta get serious at this healing if you want to get well. You gotta listen to the elders.
We counted on him.
So ways to bridge the gap between the elder and youth relationship. One big thing that came out was taking them back onto the land. That could be done through hunting, youth camp, showing them the medicines.
Everything is medicine,
Like the youth and elder workshop that they used to have. Leadership, to focus on the youth and elder relationship more.
We try to get the youth involved, teach them about the drum, the pipe, the sweetgrass.
He's a sweetgrass picker and a newspaper boy. He's a good hard worker, this guy.
Yeah.
Teach them about the sacred fire.
Have a harvest camp. Take all of our young people out and sit with the elders and learn all our stuff that we still have, but we have to create a new focus. It's not there.
I'd like to go there and take the kids and take them out walking. One of the things that we did before we went to the Mother Earth Lodge is we made skirts with the kids, and they really enjoyed that.
It's happening, where, we're starting to make their connection with each other. But there needs to be more of it.
And look at the youth camp that they have at Dead Horse. That's something. So I'm hoping that would help the young people, especially the young people between the 13 and 19, those ones that we need to try to role model.
We have our own role models that champion our issues. We need to stand up the appropriate champions, so that's what we aspire to. We need to create that movement amongst our youth.
If you listen to the prophecies, it's almost come true now that the youth and the young people will stop listening to the elders. The youth are not listening.
They're lost right now. They're looking for guidance. They're looking for help. They're looking for, what is our future here? That's what we need. We got to bring the ceremony back home.
We're bringing this home, our traditional ways, our medicines, our drums, sacred fire. And that's what that fire is there for, the people to come to that fire and pray, offer you tobacco there, and it will help you.
Oh, bozo, ki wait no limki. Bozo, ki wait no limki. Bozo. And we have ceremony, I sing that. And it's in our language. That means you're greeting the thunders. You say bozo to that rain because Mother Earth needs it, the trees need it, the plants need it, our food needs it. That's the way life is for us as Anishinaabe people.
They talked a lot about having like story nights between elders and youth, saying that like just to bring them together and talk about culture and traditions. They talk about language workshops.
In our teachings and our ceremonies, if we can get it back and share that, actually capturing the essence of what that's about kindness, about honesty, about humility, all of those gifts, we need to embrace those things and give life to it so that we have something to leave for the future.
Anishinaabe people are people of spirit. And you see that now amongst our people when you see them dancing in powwows. Like my little grandson there, he's what, 2? In the summer he danced with me and Nana, let's go dancing. He's looking at the ladies, he's looking at the men, and all of a sudden he takes a few steps and he's going around and around this way, and off he went. And that's the age to teach the kids. They're like little sponges, eh?
Yes.
I don't think it's an accident that today we still have the ability to reach back and capture the essence of what our elders had and bring that into today. The work that you guys are doing is so important for the future.
Being someone from the North Shore, I'm really intimately aware of the issues and I care really deeply about them. By knowing so many of the elders by first name, having been to their homes and so on, it means that there's some more credibility and I think also a greater responsibility. I really want to be a part of this new wave of Indigenous health scholarship that is training Indigenous scholars to return to their own communities and be part of the change that they want to see.
I wanted to go into business before I did this, but now I'm like, I don't know. I really enjoy this and I love helping people, and like I would love to be able to help our community out as much as possible.
I want to be the voice of our people so I can benefit my community to help them get their own voices out. I even want to do like this First Nation program, my master's.
Maybe down the road, I could help out by, working in part with the band to create a program to get the youth out on the lands.
I've always been interested in language and like culture and hearing about like the past and the way things used to be, and it makes me want to try to make a difference for our people.
I've always had a respect for my elders, but now I have an even more respect for them.
Well, right now I feel that there's lawyers and doctors are coming up, and that's a very beautiful vision for the young people. They're the decision makers and the leadership later on.
I've learned a lot from the elders, and I'm going to take that with me in the future.
I learned the traditional knowledge and the teachings like through their stories, just hearing them, listening to them.
I'm going to continue to see those elders that I've already seen and talk with them.
I've learned more about the ceremonies. I've learned more about the history of Pick River. I've learned more about our people as a community.
I think that it's helped me grow with a lot of things that I have going on in my own life.
If we just go back to the land as Anishinaabe people, that would put us in the right direction that we need to be going so we can be like the Anishinaabe people we want to be.
To get a sense of self-identity back, I think that would be really good for our elders and helping them to heal.
Some of the interviews were hard because you just want to give them a big hug because of the stuff that were brought up, which needs to be brought up. They need to be heard.
Never lose them old ways. Hang on to it. Someday you might have to go back to it.
The future that I see for our people is to be self-sufficient so that our younger people will not have to endure what we endured.
I think that the way they talked about health and their own opinions sort of made it that much more important to me, and like the way that I want to raise my son and make sure that he's growing up healthy.
We've got to continue on to teach how to respect one another, the teachings, the medicines, the water, the land, the sacredness, mostly to respect themselves.
I want us to all be healthy, to not necessarily live on the land, but use it more. And I want us all to speak Ojibwe.
My kids, I don't speak it to them, but I should. We gotta have a place like this again, become a better father, a better teacher to them. That's a medicine, you know?
We are a close community, but I think we can be even like closer. And I think if we were closer, then maybe we'll be more on the same path.
We as a people have the right, we can reclaim our historical governance systems.
After speaking to the elders, like it's so true, like for our kids that are in school right now, it'd be awesome where we can choose their curriculum.
If you want to be healthy as a person, you have to make sure that you're healthy. You have to exercise. You have to do it for yourself.
I went out and bought myself a bike. I didn't know if I could ride it. But I tried. And you know what? I actually rode better than I used to. Life is lifelong learning.
I think there should be more focus on the youth now. They're the next generation, and if they're not healthy, then what are we going to have left?
We try to teach our own grandchildren. That's our future, the young people.
I want all the youth to see this film and be like, this is what our elders think of us.
Well, I wish they would pay more attention to the land, make use of the land in a good way. Plant gardens, learn how. We need to know how to use the land.
It's going to take a huge shift in our mindset because people have become complacent and there's some stability there, although it's an unhealthy stability.
Obviously, nothing's going to change right away. It's going to take some time, but the idea of taking what we get from this as far as health goes and land goes, maybe we could adapt that.
But hopefully I'd like to see Chief and Council, the leadership in the community, do something with this.
I think it's a big eye-opener for our community to say, you know what, this knowledge is still in our community, it is still there, but if we don't do something now, it's going to be gone.
We, I believe, have a responsibility, and maybe it's this generation that makes those changes. A lot of the things that we are hearing are things that nobody will ever hear again. Things that you'll never read in a book, and it just gets me choked up to think about elders. Really beautiful elders we have in our villages. They all have their own communication style, but if you can see through what they're saying and how to apply it for today, that's really valuable. As we look 100 years from now and we look back at this day and age, you'll see what you're doing as being an integral part of that, and you'll be thanked for capturing this snapshot of where we are as a people.